Welcome back to our podcast, From A to Franchisee. And today we're talking about the importance of an exit strategy in franchising. And we are intentionally talking about this before you even get into business. Today, I welcome Michael Iannuzzi to the podcast. Michael's a partner and leader of Citrin Cooperman's franchise accounting and consulting practice. The firm provides audit and accounting, business consulting, and advisory, and tax planning services to a wide spectrum of clients within the franchise community. Michael works with franchisors and multi-unit franchisees in a variety of industries, including fitness and athletic centers, children entertainment services, such as recreational youth programs and party providers, junk removal companies, mobile concepts, pet hotels, quick service restaurants, and grocery stores. And we're here to talk about something that probably surprises you if you haven't started your business yet. But it is important that we start talking about how you get out. So my first question, Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Well, no, thank you for having me. I'm glad we got this all worked out.
Yeah. And so I think we've already kind of alluded to this, but my first question is it ever too early to think about your exit strategy?
Well, you pretty much teed it up.
Yeah.
And the question is, no, it is never too early to think about your exit strategy. And the reason is you just never know what's going to happen in the future. So franchisees that are getting ready to get into this, you don't know what their life goal is until they start talking about it. So do they want their kids involved? Do they want their other family members involved? Are they buying this specifically because they want to exit in the future? Are they buying this specifically because they want their kids to have something to do? So these are all considerations that people need to think about. And there's no reason not to think about this from the beginning. And plus, in the franchise business, you got to remember the franchisor has right of first refusal on a lot of things in the future. So the more you plan, the more you avoid surprises, later on in the future. And so, plan from the beginning, and then every year, 2 years, you should reevaluate that plan as to what's happening in the business and what's happening in your own personal life.
Okay, so you brought up good things there because I was going to say you can always change your exit strategy plan, but having a roadmap I think is good.
Correct.
But I do want to stop you because you said right of first refusal. And some people are tuning into the podcast for the first time and might not understand that term. Can you explain just very briefly how you would explain that term to a franchisee that hasn't read an FDD or understood that agreement yet?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things I would advise immediately is that, for any new franchisees coming into this business, they definitely should link up with a highly qualified franchise attorney to go through the FDD and the franchise agreement. In the franchise agreement, there'll be certain clauses about how you can transfer your unit in the future. Certain fees have to be paid, like transfer fees. There are also clauses in there about right of first refusal, where the franchisor may not approve of the person that you want to transfer the franchise to in the future. And that could be your family. It could be a brother or a sister or your kids. And so you may want to go do that 2-3 years down the road. And the franchisor may say, we don't want that person as a franchisee, and we're going to make you look for another buyer. So this is all part of the plan, all things to think about and consider before you start signing legally binding documents.
Perfect. Yeah. So, and the reason that clause is there is because the franchisor's role is to protect the brand standard.
Right.
So if they are talking to your potential successor and they don't feel that it's someone that fits the culture of the brand or is has the business acumen to run the business, they could say no. So
they could deny you. Yep.
That's right. Okay. So I also want to tackle the idea that I feel like we talk to franchisors more now, I'm assuming you do as well, that it's important for them to have conversations with their franchisees to understand these exit plans well in advance. Typically, we're looking at franchise agreements that are 10 years.
Yeah.
Year 9 is not the time to start talking about this with your franchisor.
Right.
And I also want franchisees and people thinking about franchising to understand your franchisor is not going to think that you're ready to bolt if you start having these conversations early and talking to them about what your plans are. And they might be even able to help you find a buyer. So let's stop, Michael. What are some common ways that franchisors exit their business? Why don't we start there? You mentioned family members. That's one way.
So, yeah, private equity is the hot topic. It's been the hot topic for the last probably, I would say, 5 or so years. And this is on all three, stools of the franchise community: franchisors, franchisees, and suppliers, which is like you and I, we're in the supplier side. So that's a very common type of transaction and exit plan that's been going on these last number of years. And that could be, for, again, franchisor, franchisee. But you have to be ready for that. They want certain sizes when private equity is looking to enter into a transaction. So I would say that's one typical thing to think about. Other things are rolling up in the system. So if this is a
Yes.
large system, you may look to exit to a larger multi-unit franchisee you're looking to exit, they're looking to expand. And so sometimes internal resales are a very strong way to go, because most likely that larger multi-unit franchisees are already pre-approved by the franchisor to continue acquiring. It stays within the brand, within the system, and it's an easier kind of transaction because you're just moving from franchisee to franchisee. So that's common too, and the good systems do that a lot internally. Those units don't even come to market. Other franchisees are buying them before they come to market.
Yep. Okay. Some other ones I think that you didn't say. So a lot of franchise brands now are part of platform brands. So they
Platform
have
brand.
they
Yep.
have sister brands. So there
Yep.
could be a franchisee in another brand
Absolutely. Yep.
within your network or without that might be interested in adding your business, your service, your product that you offer to their portfolio. That's
Yep.
one. Another one would be a key employee that they have on staff that they're helping create an exit strategy that allows their employee to become the new business owner. So I think that those are probably the main ones, but the
Those are
idea
the big ones.
is, yeah, it can change, but have an eye on that target of why you're doing this and how you want to get out, and talk about it with your franchisor, the corporate team, your
Correct.
field coach. Like, just constantly talk about it because it will help you build awareness that your timing and that you're ready to exit, and you can kind of raise that signal and make that finding that buyer easier. Okay, so Michael, let's talk about some ways that a franchisee can really prepare for that exit. So this is now like not I'm just signing and I'm 10 years out. But as you start thinking about your exit strategy, how do they get ready for a sale to get the best possible sales price or transition that they could hope for?
Sure. Yeah, lots of different things here, and this could be a whole different session that could last, an hour just talking about this. But some very general things are, when franchisees are getting ready just to do their basic accounting and their books and records, there's so many different ways to do accounting. There's cash basis, accrual basis, tax basis, hybrid methods. So, getting the books and records in order from day one is crucial. Putting your data room together where you have all your signed leases, you have your any addendums that you may have signed to the franchise agreement, all your corporate filings, banking information, having that data room put together and constantly updated as you're growing is very important, because that's one of the first things they're going to ask you when you get started. Okay, show me your financials, show me your data room, show me your franchise agreements. And if you're kind of running around scrambling to put that together, the buyer's already lost some faith that either you're not running the business the right way or you just don't have a handle on what's going on.
Yeah. Or you're not ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good tips. Okay. So we talked about the franchisor has right of refusal. What other ways do franchisors or the corporate team get involved in helping that transition to the next owner?
Yeah, so some of the more, mature systems, and you mentioned this earlier, Michelle, they'll be either field consultants or business coaches. So the good ones that have these in place, when they're meeting with the franchisees on a, semi-annual basis at a minimum, they're having these types of discussions with them, asking them what their plans are, how they think they're going to grow, what they're looking to do. And so as you're going through your franchise agreement, you know, especially if you're brick and mortar, there's leases that are involved here. So once you're getting to 6, 7 years into your franchise agreement, you have leases coming up. Your franchise agreement needs to be, start to be renewed. So you need to have these conversations a couple of years out. And so the field consultants and the franchisor, they're starting to coach you on these types of things. Like, are you looking to renew? Do you want more units? Your lease is going to expire before the franchise agreement expires. How are you planning for that? So the earlier you start, the more communication you have, the better off you're going to be in the end.
So do you think if the lease agreement doesn't line up with the date that you want to transition, is it better to be locked into a lease or to have that coming up soon? Do you think that there's a benefit either way to a business owner?
I think that's a tough question to
Yeah.
answer because it's market conditions. It's do you really love the location? If that's happening, you know that's happening, so that's not a surprise, right? It's not
Yeah.
like all of a sudden your lease term change and you know it's expiring. So if you know you've set yourself up that way from the beginning, a year to 2 years out minimum is when you need to start addressing that situation. It can't be 3 4 months before the lease expires or the franchise agreement expires. You have to start addressing that a couple of years out to plan in case the landlord doesn't want to approve you for whatever reason. You have to start thinking about moving. So you need a year or two out minimum to plan for that type of scenario.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have another question for you, and we didn't talk about this before, so I'm going to throw this at you on the fly.
Okay.
I feel like I hear a lot of times from franchisors that franchisees don't have a realistic number of what their business is worth.
Uh-oh.
Do you feel like there's any recommendations we can give to people to have a really realistic sense of what they have for value in their business and what they should be selling it for?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to do to kind of figure out that value, but just from an overall perspective, when buyers are looking to buy the business, they want to pay for kind of what's going on now and maybe build in some sort of future, run rate projection. So where the disconnect comes in is, well, I'm projecting my business in 3 years from now to do X. Okay, but nobody's really going to pay for 3 years later. They're
Yeah.
looking to see what they can pay for now, and then what their money will do to get you to that 3 year plan. So that's where the big disconnect comes in a lot. But if you're preparing and doing things like calculation of value, those are reports that you can prepare. They're not that expensive, and it gives you like the down and dirty comparable value of what your unit is worth to other units that are in the system. And that starts to give you some ammunition for when you get ready to go to market. Because again, you don't want to go to market not knowing anything about the business and the value. You need some, you need like a ace up in your sleeve to kind of get ready to do this. This way, nobody's pushing back on you, and you have no basis to push back on the buyer.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask, I don't think they are, but I'm going to ask you if you've seen this. I don't think franchisors are very transparent with what other franchisees have sold their business for. Some franchisors are better about sharing what we'll call a report card or scorecard across their
Okay.
system. So you can see sometimes it's top line revenue, sometimes it's different metrics of how transparent franchisors will get. But the idea is the more information you have into other franchisees' business, you kind of know where you fall in line in a rank order of sales or profitability. I think that can help give people an idea of where am I in that system rank as far as success. And the other thing I was going to say is your FDD, if you don't have a really involved community with franchisees, you should always kind of know what's happening with your franchisee community. And if people are selling or
Yeah.
have sold recently, reach out to them and ask them what
Absolutely.
questions. Yeah, they might
Yeah.
not always share a lot of detail, but I think it's a good place to start. If you're in a franchise system that doesn't give you really good access to the franchise community, the people that have exited the system are listed in the FDD. So your
Correct.
franchisor is updating that
Correct.
FDD every year, and you can see who's exited. So you could reach out to them that way and try and get a sense of even just, did you get what you were hoping for? Did you get what you're asking for if they're not willing to share numbers? But I think those are some,
Absolutely. Yeah, and
yeah,
the broker networks are out there. Sometimes they publish information like that, or you can see what recently traded. Do some simple Google searches, Chat GPT type searches to see what public information is out there on certain transactions.
that's what I was going to ask you if you had other
Yeah,
ideas. So that's perfect. So yeah, so trying to get a sense of what other businesses like yours have sold for. And even it doesn't even have to be in your network. You could try and find that out from businesses similar to yours in your
sure,
in your region would be another
sure.
way, just to make sure you're not thinking you're going to get 10 million from this transaction and it's really going to be like 3 million.
Right,
That's a big letdown.
right, right.
Okay. What other thoughts do you have, Michael? What advice would you give to candidates or people that are interested in franchising? And it can be specific to succession planning or just in general. What advice do you have to this audience on how to find out if a franchise is a good fit for them, or what advice would you give them as they're researching franchises before they pull trigger and sign that very big document?
Yeah, I mean, there's almost information overload, but there is so much information that is out there these days that if you're not reading through all the different websites that are out there, if you're not pulling competitor FDDs, if you're not, listening to things like this or doing your own talking to every single franchisee that you can talk to that's listed in the FDD, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice not to do that. The information is there. Um, Included in the FDD are the financial statements. A lot of people kind of glaze over that as well. So you should be looking at the financial statements that the franchisor is putting out, asking them certain questions about it. How are you going to support me in the future? Sold but not open is a big one. So if you're going through the item 20 and you see, a big backlog, could be okay, but it's a good question for you to ask, why is this the big backlog? How long does it take to get these people open? Where do I fall in that category if I sign this agreement? So those are the types of things that come to mind. But between all the educational content out there, the conferences, the webinars, the franchise community, as you know, Michelle, is very kind of tight, and we put a lot of content out. So I think there's a lot of information out there that you can get your hands on and educate yourself on.
Yeah, I think so. You brought up the first one. I think no one else has talked about this, is the idea of getting your hands on competitor FDDs.
Sure.
That's a
Sure.
great piece of advice. If they are franchising in one of the registration states, which
Yep.
we've discussed in past episodes, you can get that on the internet. And that's a great point, which I don't think we've talked about that before. How about, what kinds of content do you guys have on the Citrin Cooperman? Obviously, they can work with your team to do more of this and get more, but what kind of content do you have on your site that people not working with you yet could get their hands on to get a sense of the kinds of things that you're doing or things that would help them in their business planning?
Yeah, we have a lot of things on like taxes because that's always a popular,
Yeah.
topic. There was the new tax bill that was passed a couple of months ago. So all that education content around the one big beautiful tax bill is up on our website. Podcasts that were done, webinars that we've done, that's all linked on our website. Other things that maybe could be value add, as you grow your system, different types of software you may want to look at, different technology platforms. So our website has a lot of that, information curated on our franchise page and then on our main, company website that, does a lot more than just franchising.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I actually was on the webinar that you did around the one big beautiful tax bill.
Oh,
So that
cool.
was that was really, really great education for just a business owner. I own a business with my
Yeah.
husband, to understand it was a very big tax bill. So I think that
Yeah.
was a great kind of
And it's very
breakdown of it.
unique. It's
Yeah.
it's like individualized type of stuff. So, you and I may own the same type of business, Michelle, but you may have it in one entity, I may have it in another, and our answers could be different
Yes.
because of the
Yes.
entity type.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So I'm glad I asked about that. And then I have one other question. If you could buy, or if you had to buy
So
a franchise, what industry would you consider? I'm not saying you would buy. I don't want you to offend any customers, but what intrigues you?
I do get asked this question a lot. I like things with subscription revenue
Yes.
and reoccurring revenue because at least you have some sort of idea going into the next year what you think you can do. So that's something that just because that's kind of like the accounting business as well. Like, if we do a good job and we take care of our clients, the hope is that they'll return next year because they need annual audits, annual tax compliance. So we can kind of project a little bit what we're looking at. So things like that I like, health and wellness, mobile type concepts. There's a lot out there that I'm intrigued about to
Yeah.
see what like.
Well, and the subscription model too,
Yeah.
when you go to sell your business, that is something that
Yes.
buyers really, really like. So that's
Yes.
another reason to look at it. Awesome.
And what I would say for the non-subscription ones, you have a lot of data in-house, based on your customer feedback, customers that you've taken care of. There may be other things that you can offer those customers that maybe are kind of outside the daily routine. It could be some type of product or supplement or even just merchandise that you can offer that customer base that maybe is a one-time type customer, but they like you, they're happy with your service, and maybe there's something else that you can do for them, or you can link up with other types of businesses that you can share that client, and maybe you get a referral fee in return. So lots of things to do, even with the one time customers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. Yeah, and I think we have talked about this in other episodes, and just that I think one of the underutilized parts of franchising is that franchisees don't connect with other franchisees in their local
absolutely.
market to do a
Yes.
lot of that kind of cross promotion,
Yes.
or my customer might be a good customer for you. So that's a
Yep.
great thing to point
For
out too.
sure. For
Awesome.
sure. And they're not out in the market enough.
Yeah,
So get
always.
into your community, go to your local chamber events, any networking groups that you can join, be known in your community.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't rely on the franchisor to bring you your business,
Yeah.
and you have to keep those people coming back to your business.
Correct.
So, yeah,
Correct.
get out there. Awesome. Well, Michael,
All
I'm
right.
so glad you were able to join us. Thank you
Yes,
for
yes.
getting people to think about the importance of this from day one, to have some kind of plan on how they're going to exit. It's great.
Michelle, thank you as always. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.